Welcome back to another episode of Life's Ambition Podcast. Today we are joined by one of the most extraordinary people I know. He's going to give his input on becoming an owner of an air duct company, working in a union, and just the hockey world in general. Without further ado, Joe Hartge, aka Pops. Pops, how we doing?
Good. How are you, Drew, man?
I'm doing great. Just got back from Disney, so was able to check out Star Wars Land and I had a lot of food around Epcot, which was really cool. Have you been recently?
Where to Disney? No,
Yeah.
I haven't been there since my kids were young. Probably, back in maybe, Luke was born in 2000, so probably 2004, 2005. So,
You got to go back. The just some of the stuff they've done there is just so cool. Like the Rise of Resistance ride, the Star Wars one. I'm not a
right,
big fan of 7, 8, 9, the newest trilogy,
right.
but they did a really good job. Like you're in this R5 car, like you're escaping on a transport car.
Yeah,
There's blaster fire that comes at you where it actually like rips up the walls, even though it's all animated.
yeah.
It's really cool. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll be going to all of those. As you know, I have a brand new, she's about 14 months now, granddaughter. And, I'm sure we'll
Heck
have to
yeah.
hit all those. She's already watching Mickey Mouse every time, she comes
Yeah.
over here. So the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. So I'm starting to learn all those songs, and, you know, uh, going back to my childhood and when the kids were there and stuff. I think Mickey's been around forever, right? So
Yeah.
we all turned around and got the chance to experience Mickey. But I will go on record saying that me and Pluto probably have the same IQ because he's my favorite. That's why, and and it's because we can relate with the lower IQ, So
I feel that. I feel that. I think Pluto is one of my favorite. And then like another character growing up is I really liked Winnie the Pooh. That was a big one. So
oh
maybe when
yeah,
you get like
yeah.
the Winnie the Pooh sweatshirt, I'm about the same IQ level as Winnie the Pooh. I just think about honey and food.
Yeah, no, but I got a couple Scooby Doo's one of my favorites too. So I got a
There you
lot,
go.
but
Wait till you get to the Disney movies when everyone's singing Moana. The haircut guy that I go see talks about his kids only singing Moana. They have it on like 24/7 because of the new one coming out. So wait till you
right.
get there. But I really did want to get into kind of you and learn more about you and just kind of how this crazy road started for yourself in terms of getting in line with union workers, helping set up stages for U2 and other very popular artists.
Right.
I just wanted how to start.
Well, uh, my career, you're gonna laugh. I'm a fourth generation stagehand. So what a
Whoa.
stagehand does to make it easy on everybody is if you're at a rock concert or you're at a play, everything that you see up in the air on stage and everything is us. We put it up, we take it down, we design it and everything like that. And um, so going back to my start, I was 14 and I was working for my dad and at Medina, the old Medina Temple downtown, and I would run spotlights and stuff or go in and clean. And then actually what happened was from there, high school, um, I was training, which I'm sure we'll get into later. Got done playing high school hockey and started training for the U.S. Deaf Olympic team. And so I didn't go into the lighting and sound right away because I needed more stable hours. So for 8 years, 9 years, I was a millwright, which did a lot of mechanical stuff, replacing like screw conveyors, doing conveyors. I was out at O'Hare Airport for almost 3 years, putting in a new baggage claim system. And I was apprenticing that. So then going, going back to the state chance. Then I started that full time in 2000. No, I'm sorry, 1997. So I did that up until about 58 when I retired. I also had a air duct cleaning business and air purification company And the reason I did that was when I first started out with the union, little guy on the totem pole, we would be off. We would be off Monday, or I'm sorry, we'd be off of work around from Christmas to um, like March. So I started this as like
Really?
yeah, yeah, just like because it wouldn't be that busy. And with being an apprentice, of course, those are the last guys to work. And so what ended up happening was I opened up this air duct cleaning business just as like a side business. Well, through the years, then what ended up happening is, I do that in the winter and then go back to the rock shows, plays, conventions, all of that. From March to October or whatever it was. Then what happened was it just got bigger. I built the company, got, word of mouth, I had an attitude to work on the house the same way that I would treat my house, everything. And then it ended up becoming a full-time business, and so I did that for about 18 years too. So very busy.
So I'm thinking to myself, if you had that amount of time off, I think that's great that you came up with the idea for just cleaning air ducts because it's amazing what things you don't realize people would need to do later on when it comes to like house expenses. Whether that's, I know HVAC systems after so many years need to be replaced, and some people you just honestly totally forget about them. I know growing up, we had our vents cleaned out, and the just amount of dust and just crud that just gets stuck in it is just unreal.
Yeah.
It's just unreal.
Well, when I did dryer vents, like I said, duct cleaning, but then when COVID hit, my air purification side of the business, with air purifiers, turned around and took off, of course. So I had like some hospitals, I had some businesses and stuff like that. And then about 6 months into the COVID, a company came out with a air purifier that didn't kill COVID, but killed SARS-19, which is the same, which is the
Hmm.
mutant that's in the COVID. So that's I started getting busy, and and we'll go into it later, I'm sure. But my body just wasn't holding up, so it was time to retire,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, no, I definitely want to get into that later on. Like, what does it take to implement these air purifier systems? And let's just say to a hospital with something just that large of a scale.
Well, the thing was, I don't want to say it was a government contract, but you had to be certified in the air purification side of it, So it was a class and a schooling for about 4 weeks,
Oh, that's not
And
bad at all.
well, no, because I already had the other certifications for like air duct cleaning, dryer vent clean, so it was
Gotcha.
a little bit easier for me. So then what happened is the state mandated that you got to know what you're doing, and so there was me and a guy down in Champaign, Illinois, that we were the only two that was certified to do this. So
Holy cow.
yeah, so in Illinois. So then what we did, me and him, is we kind of split the state in half. He took everything south. Instead of trying to compete against each other and turn around and drive, 100 miles to put in a, $600 air purifier, you know, and, so what we did was kind of divide the state into two. So somebody would call me from, I'll just give you an example, from Champaign, and I turn around and say, hey, call Billy over at Air Systems
Mm,
Incorporated. And he would do the same for me. And it was actually a really good working situation with him.
yeah.
And so it ended up working out good. But that's when the long hours started to hit in at the end of my career. My body was getting more beat up than it was. And
Yeah.
so it was time to call it quits.
Well, do you ever like look back on it at all and you think, wow, like COVID happened 5 years ago now at this point, and you had all these air purifiers, like the need for air purifiers was astronomical.
Right, right. And people, maybe you can help me out with this. You're a smart kid. Um, People didn't understand the value. They only looked at the price a lot of times. You know what I mean? And they didn't
Hmm.
look at the value of it. And that was like the first 4 months. But then, you get out there, you know, turn around, and I'll just explain to you like how bad this got during that time. Like there was what we call clean rooms. So these people that come in with COVID to the hospitals or to the medical centers, they would go into a certain part of the hospital,
Hmm.
and there would be 3 or 4 air purifiers in that small little 8 bed. Okay. And
Oh.
then they would go from there in a couple of days. Then they would turn around and go to a room that had two in it, depending on the hospital and medical center, why they were getting cared.
Mhm.
And then they would go to one, and then they would get out. But they worked in houses, but the industrial end of it was really what happened.
See, in my head, I always thought you were going to say, yeah, there was, and maybe in quarantine there was maybe two, and then there was just one in every room. But what you're saying, there was hundreds of these things in a hospital.
Yeah, there could be, like there could be anywhere between 30 and 40 of them. They may not use them because they were good for 4,000 square feet. They may not use them in every room. But like the emergency rooms, you saw them in, ICU, we saw them in. And so it was a lot of work, and I'll be honest with you, it started taking over during COVID. Those 2 solid years of COVID, I'm going to call them
Yeah.
2 years. The 2 years of solid COVID, it started taking over the dryer vent cleaning. It started taking over the duct cleaning. I mean, I would still do that, but then I would educate the people and say, hey, this is it, or they'll call me about it and say, hey, when you come out, remind me, I want to ask you about these air purifiers. Then they would do the duct cleaning, and then I would put an air purifier in their house, purification system. So, and the thing is, I had to educate people. Um, and what I mean by that is people were all worried about the ozone. Oh, is it going to put ozone in my house? The systems that we used, what it was AC turned into DC. And then, without getting into the science of it, it was just totally safe. They wouldn't
Hmm.
let us do it. So it was very interesting. But that knowing that I was helping somebody, maybe, a grandma or a grandpa or,
Yeah.
mom, dad, going back to their family, it was satisfying. It was really satisfying in a way.
Oh, I'm sure. And you started with this business really early on. Did you have prior experience to doing this at all? Or did
No, I
you
had to
just kind
learn
of up
on
with it
the
on a
fly
whim?
and make mistakes, like everybody starting a new business. I did my friends and family first, and you know, a
No.
lot of those, a lot of
Did you
those
happen to
jobs
mess up
were
anything?
right. A lot of those jobs were apologies. I'll just
Yeah.
give you an example. One of the first houses I did, I forgot to put the vacuum on, so I'm in the room. The duct cleaning vacuum, it had a brush and then it would suck it up. Forgot to put the vacuum on. So I had dust throughout these people, my friend's house coming out of every vent because it wasn't vacuumed. So here is a high intensity brush spinning. And, so that was good. I come out and it's like, oh, it's snow and dust. This is cool.
You just go, hey, my bad. Let me let me
Yeah,
take care of
yeah.
that for you.
So it was pretty crazy.
Or you just say, hey, I did this room. It looks like the rest is yours, and you just kind of hand them over the vacuum.
Right. Yeah. So it was entertaining to say the least. There was a learning curve, but within a couple months I got it, stuff like that. So
I mean, what came up with the idea of even starting this though?
okay, you ready? You're gonna
Yeah,
laugh.
let's hear it. Let's hear it.
So I'm on a break on one of the jobs. I'm having lunch, and like everybody else, guy was talking about his uh, getting his house duct cleaned. I open up my phone and what's on it? A duct cleaning advertisement for the machine. So I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. um, make your money back. It was some kind of gimmick, but make your money back within 5 months. You buy my machine. So I started looking into it, and then I purchased one of the machines, and it just took off from there. Like I said, I started out doing family and friends, um, and then turn around. By the end of it, I had a website for the air purification, a website for the
Wow.
air duct cleaning. Yeah, it was a it took me probably 5 to 7 years of thinking, oh, you know what? Maybe I could do this, you know, more full time instead of part time, because my body was getting beat up with all the rock shows and
Yeah.
plays and, work. And I wasn't really wild anymore about working out in the, 100-degree weather and the
Oh,
third,
what's wrong with that?
and the 30 below weather. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Load sitting in an alley at 2 o'clock in the morning, loading a
Uh-huh.
54-foot truck, So, but yeah, that's kind of my work history, in a
No,
nutshell.
which is really cool because
Yeah,
I see a lot now where people are getting invested into the power washing industry. Like a lot of people are doing sidewalks and then
yeah,
houses even and then trucks. I know semi trucks is a big thing with all the
yeah,
mud they get on them to power wash. And then
yeah,
I've also seen people who now are trying to create businesses where they'll paint like the handicap signs and like where you park signs. Like I don't know what that's
right,
called, but the
right,
lining for that. I've seen a lot of people getting into that area as well. And they're just doing it by buying one simple like liner piece or even just power washer and just building a business out of it. So for you to
right.
say that you did that, I think is kind of funny.
Yeah,
And going in with no experience, just like, oh, might as well.
you're gonna laugh if I was to open up a business today. I and didn't have a gag reflex like myself. I'd open up where they come and clean the garbage cans out at your house, with the power wash the garbage cans, clean them and everything.
Really?
I mean that. I mean that's a business that people don't. Nobody wants to clean their garbage cans.
Um,
So
the amount of stuff that you can find in a garbage can and or even just like what grows out of it is just so wrong. I
yeah,
remember I have really good friends growing I have really good friends and when we were growing up together, they went camping and they came back from Wisconsin and in the trash bags they put them on the lawn, just maggots grew within the day. Oh, it's
yeah.
just so wrong. I just can only
Oh,
imagine. I'm like, oh.
yeah. It wasn't good. Yes.
No.
So,
But so this was in between the breaks that you had when you were doing setups, right?
right. Yep.
Okay. So
Yep.
I know you said that you're fourth generation, correct?
So, yeah.
With the
Fourth
furniture.
generation staging.
So what did that entail then? Like when someone's at like doing their rehearsal or doing their concert itself or just a game, like how do you know where to go or
Well,
how they need things set up?
well, um, there's a production manager, so I'll just start at the back end. Um, so the trucks come in, the guys unload them, push everything up to the stage or wherever we got. Sometimes there was no stage; we'd have to build the stage. You know, then once the stage is up, the lights get put up. You know, now there's so many lights for all these shows, and
Yeah.
everything like that. And then after the show's up, I'm kind of capsulizing. It takes a lot longer, of course, but then sound goes in, and then all of everything goes in. Then wardrobe and drapes and stairs, and like I said, anything that when you go to a concert, anything that you see on stage and the stage itself is what we did. What
Mm.
we did, and then the object was to take the whole thing down and put it in the trucks in 4 hours. So it you have leads like none of these shows turn around and rely on us. They always have a production manager. They always have a carpenter head sound guy. So then you would turn around and disperse them, with the local guys. So these guys do it every night, so they know the show inside out, and then they, we would turn around, quote unquote, help, kind of help them. But like myself, I was the head carpenter at the United Center for 6 years, so they would check in with me and or the union steward, but they would check in with me, and then I would disperse the guys for carpentry. Okay, you go there, you go there, you go there. So I mean, like a halfway decent show, have 100 guys on it.
Holy
And
cow.
yeah, and that
That's a
that
lot of
was
moving parts.
yeah. But it's when I started. I'll just give you an example too. When I started, maybe the big shows. I'm talking Bruce Springsteen, the Rolling Stones, U2. They had 5, 6 trucks. When I ended, yeah, they'd have 5, 6 54-foot semis, with all the sound gear and everything in it. When I ended, I was doing shows like at Soldiers Field that had 25 steel trucks, and then another 40, where, the stadium, you'd have 70 trucks on one show. And what happened is it just got to the point, hey, I'm going to outdo, Rolling Stones are going to outdo Gin Blossoms. Gin Blossoms are going to outdo, with their setup. And just recently, I mean, this is where it's at. Just recently, I don't know if you heard about it, but the Disturbed concert at the United Center, they had pyro that went so high it burned the championship flags for the Bulls. And
What?
yeah, and
I didn't
so
hear
that
about
wasn't
this.
that great.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was no longer just, oh, this is nice, a couple lights. It just got to be massive. I mean, massive.
And you said you had a 4 hour time limit after to pack everything back up?
Yep, that's what they would like because it was union. So as you know, I mean, you get into double time after that, and nobody wants to pay that.
But that
So
just seems so unrealistic for what you said about 70 steel trucks.
it sounds like a lot. Yeah. I mean, you'd have 25 steel trucks and another 45, set and sound and drape and everything. But it just got to be such a uh, mass production. But you knew exactly what had to be done. And so we got it. It was pretty smooth. There was nothing. you know. But my favorite group, of course, U2. Those, I worked those guys forever and a day, and nice guys, really nice guys.
Oh,
And
so you got to meet them?
well, you meet, in my like my situation, you you have interactions with them, in cafeteria. They come and do
Gosh.
the sound check, and so you'd have to make sure that they were happy with everything. So, but me personally, I I was taught growing up, don't be in an awe. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Don't turn around and make a big deal out of it. And my dad always told me, funny. He goes, "You're not there to watch a show. You're there to work. Do not ask for tickets. If I find out you ever ask for tickets for anything," he goes, "me and you are going to have a problem." He just well, he grew up and that, and I was very aware of this. The older guys, that came in before me, they're the ones that, you know, were able to set it in stone. Our business. You know what I mean? Of how good we are. I belong to the local in Chicago, and it's probably now the second or third largest behind New York and California as the union. And they did training for us. They had we had a journeyman training. So and then you learned on the job a lot of stuff. You learned on the job if you pay attention. A lot of guys that come, put it up, go home. me, I wanted to learn everything about the business. That's just how I was. And
Well, that
I
helped
wanted to
get you
learn
to your
how to do.
lead carpenter
What's
position.
that?
Learning all that stuff helped you get to your lead carpenter position.
Right, exactly. And I wanted to know electric. I wanted to know electric. I wanted to know sound. I wanted to know, you know, carpentry. I just liked the carpentry end of it. So, I like putting things together, figuring out puzzles and stuff like that. And then,
Can you give me an example of what you would be doing, like as the lead carpenter?
well, I'd be in charge of like the local guys, head carpenter. I would disperse the jobs. If here's the situation, I'll tell you that like if something didn't fit in the arena,
Mhm.
or there was a mistake with where the stage was going to be, we'd have to rectify that, and I would work with the road guys, the guys that went with the show and I would work tight with them. I would ask them how many guys you need for the stage, how many guys do you need for the drape, how many guys do you need, and that's kind of what it was, but there was a lot of jobs that I wasn't, which was nice because, everybody goes to work. A lot of people go to work, they do the same thing every day. With being a stagehand, you don't do the same thing every day. You're doing something different, whether it's an industrial, whether it's a industrial show for State Farm or Allstate, you're doing something different every day,
Yeah.
and
I mean, what
and I
is
like
it?
that.
Yeah. Uh, for me at work, just doing mapping, it is, I swear there's a new problem every day. And that's what I love about it is that it's always something different. And obviously that's more private sector, but you have experience more in the union public side sector of things. Like,
Right.
what is it like working for a union?
A lot of people have different opinions, but I came, like I said, I came maybe 8 years out of school, and part of the reason why I did, you know, part of the reason why I did the ear duct cleaning was you got to support the family one way or the other, and they have, you know, uh, they have a lot of benefits, and health, glasses, medical, and I like that part of it of having, not to worry about that,
Yeah.
and especially, with my two kids growing up, but
Mhm.
in the same instance, those long hours where it starts at 8 a.m. and on a rock show or a concert, you're working from 8 a.m. to 2, 3 in the morning. So I missed a lot of I missed a lot of the kids stuff growing up, and so I kind of regret that. But you know, bottom line is you gotta do what you gotta do, right,
Yeah.
to make ends meet.
Exactly. And when did the body start really feeling it? Like started kind of deteriorating on you? Because there's a
Well,
lot of moving
yeah,
labor.
in 1998, I was building a movie theater, big 30 uh, mega, or like a mega theater that had 30 screens in it, and it was in the winter, and one of the guys came to where I was working, the trailer, and said, "Hey, Joe, we got a problem with this screen. It's hitting the air duct." So I went over there and I went up in the lift, and as the lift was there, it was still, outside, like no heat on the inside. So I went to step from the lift to the platform, and the lift kicked out, and I fell.
Mm,
I bounced off a couple things, but I fell 60 feet. So I
yeah.
broke my neck, busted my back, knees, everything. And the thing I tell people is, when I fell that far and I'm looking up at the screen, and I'm like, wow, nothing hurts. I knew, I knew something was wrong. So
Yeah.
that was a really hard um, thing to come back from. And of course, me being stubborn, the doctors are like, you're going to have to do something else here. Well, I came back for another 12 years before I got it. So the answer to that question what is probably, 6 years into it where it started to get hard. And then
Yeah.
by 15 years, it was tough. I mean, my knees started going, my back, I had a rotator cuff surgery on it, and
Hmm.
it's just not, there's nothing light in that business. It's not like you're picking up a cup or something. You're always picking up a speaker or, some kind of case.
Is that why you said that you wanted to start the HVAC, or not HVAC, but the air
Right.
purifier and all that stuff beforehand, or like some years beforehand, so then you don't have to put your body more through that?
Well, I started the air duct cleaning business because, like I said, when I was younger, before I got my union card, you had to turn around and subsidize it because, I'd work outside all summer, in the fall. And then what would happen is it would slow down right after Christmas. So I did that to kind of subsidize the income to turn
Gotcha.
around and, turn around and supply for the family.
Do you think it would have been helpful to your own health if you had just gone full time into it?
I wouldn't put it this way. I wouldn't want to know what my body was if I did it for 30 years. I
Yeah.
got two I got two brothers that do it still. My younger brother is at the Lyric Opera downtown in Chicago. He's been there 33 years. He graduated high school on a Friday, started as the apprentice on a Saturday. And then my
Wow.
older brother's retired. He was in for almost 30 years. So, so like I said, I see them walking around and, it's tough. It's a tough business. And, you know, um, but it, you do what you got to do. I keep going back to that. I didn't go to
Hmm.
college, and I decided to try to make the, U.S. National Deaf Olympic team. So I didn't go to college. I could have went to play hockey, but I chose to try to represent our country and stuff like that. So, I
Which
was
I think
able.
is awesome.
I didn't have a chance to, you know, um, well, I had a couple offers to play college hockey, but I was at a time um, that I really wanted to, I was already on the U.S. National team, and I was the youngest person to make the team. I was only 16.
Wow.
So we traveled around during the summer. We would go to Colorado Springs training center for 2 weeks, and then we would go on, maybe a 20 to 25 game kind of tour, if you will. And then I played in like a national championship. Um, a lot like the U.S. Junior Cup that they have now. So it was usually Sweden, Czechoslovakia, Canada, of course, and then Finland. So we would do something every other year. We did that. So, but it all started because I have a severe hearing loss, and I started at a hockey school in the summer called the Stan Mikita Hearing Impaired Hockey Association. And that's kind of where all the deaf kids across the nation would turn around, and then they would pick the team every 2 years. A different team. You'd have a chance to try out for that team every 2 years. Like I said, I made it at 16, so I was at that school for 40 years. It's in its 53rd year, I believe, where they still do it and stuff like that. All the kids from all over the country come that have the same common problems. Some are
That's
hearing
amazing.
impaired, others are deaf, others are, they use sign language. So I worked my way up. I played on the freshman team. I was 6 years old when I went there. So I worked my way up, and then at 16, I wasn't going to try out, and because I was on what they call the JV team, I wasn't even on the varsity team. And then Gene Ubriaco, who coached in Pittsburgh, he coached, he started the Chicago Wolves. he told me you should try out. You never know what happens. So I tried out, and I'll be honest with you, I made the team, but the first couple times we went, like to Eagle River, Wisconsin, and to you know overseas and stuff, I did not play much my first 2 years. I'm talking, I got lucky. I'd be lucky if I played two line shifts or something. So then I worked my way up, and then the year that I graduated high school, I got named captain of the U.S. national team. So
Wow.
what that covers is any of the tournaments, the Olympics, and everything like that. So in 1991, I played in the Olympics, and we won a silver medal in Banff Springs. And what was great about that team, Drew, it's all these kids, and young men now, but it was all of the kids that like were in my group, if you will, like all my buddies, that I've known since I've been 7, 8 years old, that we've worked our way up. And so that was a really neat team, and I was captain of that team. And we lost to Russia in the finals 4-3 in overtime. So we won a
That's a
silver medal.
dagger.
Yeah. So we won a silver medal, and I thought at that time after the Olympics, I thought, you know what, time to turn around and do something else, and get on with your life. And I tell people there's nothing more proud than to put on that USA jersey for every single time. People say for the first time. I took it very serious every time I put it on. You know what I mean? It was the same feeling, hey, you're representing your country. So I came home in '91, and I had the medal like in my bag and stuff. So I was really quiet, and I turned around. We had dinner with my mom and dad. My wife now, she was my girlfriend, Cindy. She's like, "Oh, where's your medal?" My brothers, "Where's your medal?" I said, "It's in my bag." And my dad, you gotta know my dad. He's a quiet but very direct man. You know what I mean? So we were eating, and everybody's asking me, and I told the wife that when I came home in '91, we would start the family and stuff. In '92. And when I came home in '91, he turned around finally at dinner, and he sets down his fork, and he turns around and he goes, "Are you guys that crazy?" He's going back. And, he's going back for another one. And my wife looked at me, and she just said, uh, you better be in the best shape of your life. And I was. And the neat part was we went in 1995, the next Olympics. We had 26 guys on the team, including three goalies. And out of that 26, 22 of them were from the '91 team. So
Wow. So everyone came back.
almost everyone came back. Yeah. And what the greatest part about that is we were all older. We were all, I don't know if you can say wiser, but we did not lose a preseason. We did not lose a preseason game. And then when we got to the Olympics, it wasn't even close. I mean, we were beating teams 8-1, 9-1.
You guys
You know,
came hungry.
yeah, and Czechoslovakia, they weren't very good that year, so that was double digits. And then of course we get up against Canada for the gold, and we won it. So I was lucky enough to play on that team for 12 years and to win a silver and to win a gold. I mean, that's the pinnacle of my hockey career, if you will. And I felt like I was finished at that time. You know what I mean? You know, you know what they say, you want to finish out on top. So that's what I did.
Well, and anytime you talk about how anytime you wore the USA jersey, it meant something to you and you take it very serious. I'm just thinking about the Four Nations games that just happened, and just it looks like an MMA blood sport out there. Like
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah,
regardless if they were teammates, it did not matter. Like they
yeah,
came to play, which I thought was awesome.
yeah, and it's hard to explain, you know, but to this day, that was what, 95, we're in 2025, so 30 years. I still, get the I don't goosebumps. I still get excited about international play, and because I felt like once you wear the jersey, you always wear the jersey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in hindsight, people said, "Don't you wish you would have went to college?" In hindsight, no. I mean, I do not regret what I did at all.
How many people get to say they won a gold medal and build a career out after it, whether that was doing the staging, but then doing air duct cleaning and all this stuff?
Right,
Nobody really gets to say that at all.
right. And judging from that, like I said, that what really hit me was, like I said, we had at the hockey school, we had kids 5, 6, 7 years old. And what we always did during the Olympic years was the Olympic team would skate. We would practice every day, we would work out, eat, but we would skate with the youngest group. And, that was something that the coaches believed in. So, um, what would happen was, this is how I got, kind of leading into my coaching career. I really got a lot of satisfaction out of these kids looking up to you, turning around. And, um, that was important. And as captain of the team, I told them, I said, these kids coming up, um, are the future of, U.S. Def hockey. And I said, I'm not making you go there. I'd like to see you there. And we had every single guy there. So that was kind of cool for these kids to be able to, quote unquote, look up to you and,
Mm.
stuff like that. So it was a great experience. I don't regret one bit of, so.
And I know you obviously went on to coach hockey. Just what has hockey meant to you and why? Because I think it's obviously playing, I have a bias where I think it's the best sport. And that's just more because the amount of people that's on the team is a finite amount. So you get to know everyone in a certain way. And the way things are structured and how many games you play, I think it just creates a culture like none other. But why would you say, or what would you say hockey has done for you?
Well, first of all, it's
Even
discipline.
the skills you learn
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah. You know, First of all, it's the discipline. My mom growing up, my mom get home from school, you do your homework. If it's done, you go to hockey. If not, you know. So I'm going to say time management. Especially when I got older, and when we were training for 6 hours a day. Eating. And you got to eat the right stuff, and stuff like that. But what it's given me is an avenue to give back. That's why I started coaching, an avenue to give back, and teach the kids. And I felt, of course, I'm going to say this, I felt, I coached them the right way, you know what I mean? And so, right after the Olympics, I turned around and started coaching. And I coached up to a couple of years ago. And, so 30 something years of coaching, but that was an avenue to meet people, to turn around. And hockey's not like baseball where every kid plays baseball. Hockey, for a couple different reasons. The main thing now is, I think the NHL's done a good job of catering to the younger group. And my friends, all my friends, your dad included, all came from the game of hockey. And the camaraderie in between teammates, I think, is second to none, because it's a close knit group of 14, 15 guys, and you're practicing 2, 3 times a week. You're playing in tournaments. You're going out of town. And if someone was to ask me, what do you miss about the game right now? It's the time in the locker room. It's the time at the hotels, sitting around at the pool. It's that camaraderie that you know, you miss. I love being in the locker room. My locker room, because of my hearing impairment, when I was younger, turned around and had a lot of problems in schools because I wore hearing aids, people making fun of me and stuff. But in the ice rink, I was in my in my realm, and I started working harder, and I just loved the game, and that's why I wanted to give back and get into coaching.
No, I totally agree. I remember, like, when I look back on it now that I'm done, is being able to just hop on the ice for men's league once a week. It just kind of feels, it does just feel like home in a sense, because you grow up doing so much of it. Like, things change, your schools changes, you maybe change friend groups. That doesn't matter, but the rink is always going to be the same
Right.
280
Exactly.
feet. So that's always felt like home, and just being able to create that group of friends, I think, is awesome. And I guess my last thing for you, Pops, is when you look back on all your years of experience and all your time, what is the best piece of advice you would give someone?
A player or just somebody that's going
Just
through?
in general, starting out their career,
You're gonna
or
laugh.
even player.
Chase your dreams. I mean, that's in coaching, and in life. I think you need to chase your dreams, and that's what I did, and I was lucky enough that it worked out. A lot of people it doesn't, but you got to come back with the resilience to turn around, and life's hard, especially now. Life's hard. There's nothing easy about life right now, and you have to be resilient and keep a positive attitude on where you're going, and where you've been. I think that's important. That you need to know where you're going and how hard you had to work to get it back.
Awesome. Well, thanks again a lot, Pops. I really appreciate being on the show today. It does mean a lot, and I know it's going to connect with a ton of people out there.
Thank, Thanks a lot, Drew. It's a great podcast. I really like it. Um, and I appreciate you having me on.
Of course. Thanks, Pops. Hey, everyone. Really appreciate you listening to the show today. If you liked the episode, please give the podcast a like or 5-star rating, depending on what platform you're listening to. Hope to catch you in the next one.